Welcome, everyone. This is the Buddhist Meditator. I am Lama Dawa Zangpo, a traditionally trained Lama in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, specifically in the Kagyu lineage. We do this every week, and we are geared towards beginning meditators and people that are relatively new to Buddhist practice, and trying to really give the fundamentals and foundational kinds of teachings and practices. So that's where we're at, and we welcome you all, no matter what your background is. And you're welcome to join us in the future live on Zoom if you're interested. Just let us know at the Buddhist Meditator at gmail.com. And without further ado, we're going to turn this over to Tal, who's a beginning meditator on the Buddhist path, and comes with some questions. So Tal, why don't you start off?
Hello. How are you, Lama Dawa? Everything good?
Great.
So I started doing this past week under your instruction to do the intention, the prayers prior to practice. And I'm not sure if I would construe this as necessarily a practice question, but it's a question of the prayer or the four thoughts. One of the four thoughts, when I was reading it every day, something struck me. When dead will be nothing but corpses, at that time only Dharma is of benefit. Let's practice diligently. So at that time only Dharma is of benefit. So it struck me, well, what benefit is it of?
Yes, well, this is an extremely important question. The whole point is, when the body dies, it doesn't mean that you could say that we die or that our conscious experience stops. There is a whole charted out sort of journey from thousands of years of meditators who have really deeply experienced this and have basically laid out the map of what goes on. And when we die, and of course in the West we consider it a great mystery, and most people are agnostic about it, meaning they basically don't think anything really happens, or just sort of write it off as out of sight, out of mind, or irrelevant to us while we're alive, or something like that. Nothing could be further from the way a traditional Buddhist would view this. The notion of consciousness is, of course, very sort of poorly understood in Western psychology even. And yet this is the whole kind of point of, you could say, Eastern spiritual traditions, and particularly Buddhist, the Buddhist tradition, which was really about exploring and understanding and gaining enlightenment through understanding the mind and what it is, and you could say the self. And who am I? Who are we? Who are you? Who are we really? And I'm not talking about the relative self that's identifies as a male or a female or something, some gender identity or cultural identity, or anything like that. So we're talking about the sort of transcendental self, beyond gender stereotypes, beyond cultural stereotypes, and beyond personality. And we don't have time to go into this, and it's probably not the appropriate place to go into any great depth on this subject, but I guess it's important to say that there is a notion that consciousness is not the self, at least not the self we normally identify with, and certainly not this physical form, which is always changing and is, of course, mortal, the mortal coil that we throw off. And there, again, a map has been kind of, that territory has been mapped out, that when a person dies, what happens? There's some continuity, some continuation of consciousness, of some kind of experience. Again, this isn't time or place to go into what the nuances of that are. But the point is, going back to your question, when we die, we're nothing but a corpse. That's the physical self becomes a corpse. We stop breathing, we die in the sense of the physical self dies. And then the line says, nothing but Dharma will help us at that point. Meaning, so we have to kind of take a big view of this, meaning the sum total of what we experienced in our lifetime, let's say how we trained ourselves, how we've woken up our heart, woken up our mind, gotten clarity, gotten some stability of mind. That's what will help us when we die, when there's still experience going on. It is, of course, said that for many people, maybe the majority of people, death is a terrifying experience. And sometimes the word bewildering is used. It's bewildering. Once you're dead, as it's taught, the dead person, the newly dead person, is usually somewhat confused. This is a new realm of experience. There's confusion, there's bewilderment, there's a sense of what's happening, what's going on, what happened to me, where am I, what's happening? And because of that, for many people, fear, it becomes a big thing. There's all kinds of experiences, of course. We talk about, seeing your loved ones and going to the light and traveling through a tunnel and then seeing and your life flashing before your eyes and all that stuff. And there's a lot of that is very familiar and traditional in the Buddhist. This seems to be somewhat universal, certain patterns. But there is a lot of experience that happens, and based on one's karmic patterns and habits and so on, all kinds of things are possible. But the point is, there's not a lot of freedom. We're not steering the situation. There's a sort of a sense almost of helplessness. If we haven't achieved mastery in our lifetime, there's going to be a sense of helplessness. Sometimes there's a great analogy. Our mind becomes like a leaf being blown about by the wind, just kind of being scattered by the wind here and there. We're not in control. We're not in charge. We're not steering it. We're not directing it. We don't have a real say in what's going on at that point. It's like a dream. For most of us, when we dream, the dream happens and we're sort of observers of it. We're not really actively steering the dream or directing what happens. We're not exerting our conscious choice. Usually, there's exceptions, of course, but the majority of people have that kind of an experience. It's the dream happens, and if something scary happens, we're scared in our dream. If something, some other thing happens in our dream, we have that experience, but we're not really directing it. And death is like that, even magnified in some sense. So the point of that line is only Dharma is of benefit, meaning the training we've done, if we have generated a strong mind, a stable mind, a clear mind, a focused mind, a mind that's loving and kind and compassionate and not self-centered and grasping, that is the kind of mind that we will carry forth into our, you could say, afterlife experience. And so that's why that's what that line is saying. It's basically reminding us, hey, while we're alive and we have control and we can make decisions, it would be a wise decision to decide to train the mind and practice Dharma, meaning train ourselves in meditation and so on.
So in that,
and lessen our attachments to things and cultivate our empathy and compassion for others. If we do those things while we're alive, that's going to help us have a better death. And really, sometimes it's actually said that the point of Dharma, the point of practice, is to prepare for death, because that is coming. It will come. And for most people, for many people, it doesn't come in a predictable way. We don't know when we're going to die, usually. And it can come at any unexpected time. So if we're caught sort of with our pants down, so to speak, we're caught unprepared, then it's going to possibly too late for regrets at that point. We're like, oh gosh, I wish I was more prepared. I wish I had trained or prepared for this journey.
I have a question real quick, just to hop in there, just to relate it with your last week's lesson or, get together. was that we were talking about how serious this practice is, and that it's not a game and it's not for entertainment. And I think that relates very tightly with what you're saying right now, that, this is life or death. And what we're learning to do is how to deal with our own personal disappearance, the disappearance of our ego, and losing everything we ever thought we were. Do you think that's an accurate way of explaining what we're trying to do here?
I do. And let's not say life or death. Let's say life and death.
Yeah, there you
It's
go.
it's very inclusive. But yes, to your point, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's great the way both of these teachings are related back to back. I really like that, and it just gives what you've said today, just really gives clarity to how serious the practice is, and that it's not just for lowering your blood pressure or that kind of thing. It's for preparing for the ultimate, basically.
Yeah, it's very serious business. And the way the 21st century is life is frivolous, and life is a game, and life is full of entertainment, and a lot of mindless sort of nonsense stuff. And I don't know if we're as grounded and sober, so to speak, in the sense of relating to reality in a way that's direct and sincere and so on, compared to the past, past generations, or even hundreds or thousands of years ago, when people lived a more natural and grounded lifestyle.
Would you say maybe in a way it's almost like a de-evolution of our interior selves? I mean, we're going backwards in a way.
Well, I don't know, maybe. I'm not sure we're going backwards. We're just susceptible players, and society,
Right.
though, as a whole is sort of, in some ways, devolving. I mean, we're advancing technologically, but maybe sort of on a kind of spiritual level, a lot of people are regressing, perhaps. And again, there's obviously tremendous exceptions, and many people are drawn to authentic spiritual paths. It resonates with something deep inside us. Something inside us says, I need more from life than just
Yes.
watching sitcoms or
Exactly.
TV shows and stuff.
So you could say that this meditation practice is training for the main event of death, and that's when you'll utilize your training. It's like I went to a Spartan race one time without doing any exercise or any training, and boy, was it a bad experience.
Yeah.
All kinds of bad things happen along that way.
So the point of death is not just death. The point of death is that death is followed by rebirth, and then it's too late. So even this life is based on causes from previous experience or previous lifetimes. So there's this sense of ongoingness. Now, again, I wasn't planning on talking about reincarnation and so on in this video, and I don't think we will.
Also, I was going to say, if we want to hone this into a practice question, how would we say this prayer relates to the meditation practice itself? Like, I understand the philosophical part, but when you're doing it, like, is there something that you bring into the meditation practice?
Yes.
The prayer? Okay.
Yes, of course. It motivates you. That's the point. So you stay on your mat, so you practice, so you feel you're accountable to some reality that's actually very, very important. That's the point. It's to sober us. These are sobering. Some people think and have said to me, Lama Dawa, why is Buddhism so depressing? And my answer is always, it's about suffering and impermanence and death. And I always say, no, it's not depressing. It's sobering. It's honest. It treats us with respect. It respects us enough to tell us the truth, which is life is serious. We do die. We lose our loved ones, and all of our happiness goes away. Now, again, it doesn't mean we walk around with a big frown and big sadness and a dark cloud over our head. You can be joyful and happy and more lighthearted because we actually understand sort of the big picture and how things are. And then we approach life with a sense of appreciation and a sense of really being present and a real sense of open-heartedness, because we're not deceiving ourselves. We're not pretending that things are other than how they are. So it's really a path of honesty. That's the point.
What's the
No,
prayer?
it's not giving us some fairy tale or some fantasy about, being in heaven for eternity or something like that.
What is the prayer that Tao is talking about?
Yeah. So the prayer, it's really 4 contemplations that we traditionally start often meditation with, or a meditation session or a daily practice.
Okay, that was in the last.
Yeah, the preciousness of this human life, how rare it is.
I
The fact
remember
that
now. Okay.
the fact that it's impermanent. I'm going to restate this for the new viewers.
Yeah.
The fact that this life is, and everything is impermanent and change and doesn't last. The fact that everything has a consequence and everything has causes. So causes and effects, which is actually what we call karma. That's the third. And then the fourth is the fact that all the things in this world, in our society, in our life, are fleeting and not very ultimately satisfying in a sense.
All right. So I think, is there any other thoughts that you have on prayer? Well, I guess there's a lot there's 4 thoughts there, and there's a lot for each one. We can have a whole episode just for each thought. I mean,
Sure.
and maybe multiple, right? If we really get that. If we look at the depth of this one question, the fact that there's benefit to the practice after death to continue the cycle. So I guess the question here would be, is there a transitionary period where you're utilizing that skill that you've practiced for a lifetime, let's say, or maybe many lifetimes, before you're reborn to evolve even further?
I'm not sure if I actually followed the question, Tal, exactly. I mean, I don't want to answer it.
Talking about the Bardo.
Well, let Tal, if you don't mind, let Tal ask his question over.
So I guess what I'm saying is, there a period after death and before birth where we're utilizing these skills?
Yes, absolutely. That's 2 parts to that question. First of all, yes, there's the sort of the time or the space or the experience between physically dying in this lifetime and leaving our body, and then taking and being reborn in another, through a womb in another, our next life. So that's called a bardo, which Tom just mentioned, and it just means in between state. But as far as practice goes, at that point, for those of us who are ordinary people, just trying our best and kind of trying to improve ourselves, there's no formal practice at that point. We're not, no. That's why it says what you did in your previous lifetime, that training is what will carry us through, sort of the good graces of what we did, the accumulated good karma, so to speak, right? That's what's going to carry you through. That's your storehouse. That's your provisions for your journey that you're on. So if you're well provisioned, you can go far and be pretty comfortable in your journey. If you are totally unprepared, or you have nothing, it might be a lot more difficult. It's your mind. It's your mind. If your mind is scattered, if it's all over the place, if it's easily distracted, that's not going to bode so well. If your mind is conditioned to be angry, if your mind is conditioned to be jealous and envious, if your mind is conditioned in this lifetime to be full of pride, and so on, those tendencies, those habits of the mind, those karmic tendencies will reoccur. They will lead to that kind of experience. So that's the point. To the extent that we can calm and tame our mind, tame our being, respond to things in a way that's more full of equanimity, that's full of, that we respond to situations with a sort of gracefulness, under pressure, and humility, and a little humor, lightheartedness. That's all we need, and that's the best we can do, and that's what's going to carry us forward. If we get much further developed, and we develop real, genuine wisdom and insight, which we're not talking about at this stage. I'm really on YouTube here. We're talking about beginning meditation practice. Just learn to follow the breath, keep the mind returning to the object of meditation when we get distracted. And let's just kind of keep it here and not get too ahead of ourselves. So it's really almost pointless to talk so much about death and bardos and rebirth and all that stuff. That can take care of itself in a sense. We need to do our work now, here, while we're in this life, in this appreciation for the importance of these teachings, the importance of this practice, and the importance and wonderfulness that we have this appreciation and opportunity so we can put it to use. So instead of procrastinating, instead of letting ourselves get distracted or talking ourselves out of meditation practice because it's a little too boring or whatever, we think we have better things to do with our time. That's the mistake in a sense. So
I have a question about pranayama and in meditation. Do you think that's a good idea? Because it involves the breath, but more than just watching the breath, actually controlling the breath. Is that a useful tool?
No, not for beginners, Tom. Absolutely not. It's not the kind of thing I teach. So many people do, but I think that can feed the ego, and it can be a distraction and so on. Let's again, I keep saying, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm talking to beginners here. This is a beginner's channel, that are new to meditation, new to Buddhism. I'm not into talking about all this other stuff that's sort of pseudo spiritual and fancy and advanced stuff. I mean, I'm adamantly against that, actually, but I'm old fashioned. A place for stuff like that, yes, but that's probably years from now for most people, and that are new to this. And everything in its time. Everything in its proper time.
So how do you advance, if you're starting watching the breath, what would be the next step for a beginner? Once you get accustomed to watching the breath and just holding that close, what would be the next step after the first step of just learning to relax the...
Can I just interject here real quick and just say that my last session as a beginner, I maybe paid 10 seconds of attention to my breath. So I think I'm many years away from worrying about that next step. Just to be honest, I try some sessions, it's longer, but that my last session, I couldn't believe how distracted my mind was. But it is what it is. I noticed it at least.
Well, that's good. To answer your question, Tom, again, the answer is there is no next step for a beginner. The beginner needs to stay with the first step for a long time until it's really stable. You keep wanting to get ahead of yourself and get ahead of things.
That's the answer right there, until it's stable.
Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, there's a form of impatience, like, oh, this isn't good enough. Right. I'm not entertained enough. I need to do more. I want to do something more interesting. That the mind is not stable and mature enough. You could do just staying with the breath for your whole life and get really, really, really good at it. And that's, you could say, good enough. So there is that we call spiritual materialism, where you always want more, and it has to be different or newer or better, more exotic, the newest toy kind of thing. And meditation, people fall into that same trap.
So it's antithetical to what we're doing.
Well, it can be, yes. Yeah. With our minds. And our minds play all kinds of tricks.
So you cut out for a second there.
I'm just saying, we're all just working with our minds, and our minds play all kinds of tricks. The ego is hard to tame. We're never quite satisfied. We haven't really developed true contentment where we can just be. We always feel like we need to do something more or different. That itself is our 21st century disease. We're never satisfied. And that's the training of our culture.
It's true.
You have to always strive and do more and accomplish more and be better than you are, and whatever, more success, more this, newer car, everything. So this is different. The Buddhas teach something different from what we learn from the world. Okay, I'll say it again. The Buddhas teach something different. This is not business as usual. This is not the world. I mean, it is the world, but it's really the honest, grounded, true world. The true reality, in a sense, is there's nothing to do. We can learn to be here now fully. Our minds are the problem, right? Our minds are telling us, I need to do this. I need to go there. I need to solve this problem. I need to figure that out. The mind doesn't know how to just relax and be.
Ain't that the truth?
When the mind is relaxed and still and just present, then wisdom arises, insights come. We start to see more clearly how things are and how the mind jerks us around and how our distractions keep us from being really fully present. So Buddhism's really very simple to say. It's a path of understanding the mind.
Wow.
A lot goes with that. It's also a path of the heart, but we often say the heart and the mind are really one thing, really one, ideally and truly unified.
Are the words mind and consciousness sort of interchangeable?
Yes, and I say, guess yes and no. I mean, it depends on the context. These are semantic. Not even worry about stuff like that. Let's just do the practice.
No, I was just curious because we sometimes the same kind of definitions are interchangeable. Oh, go ahead.
Tal, a Zen master, and I'm not one, but a Zen master would say, kill the curiosity. You said, you just said, oh, well, the curious, whatever. Kill the curiosity. The curiosity is a problem.
Okay.
Well, I guess my question is that basically what we're saying is this is then beyond understanding, because of curiosity, if there's no point being curious.
No, it's not beyond understanding. That's what I said a minute ago. When the mind is clear and calm and present and wide open and not chasing things, then the answers are here. The wisdom is there. The wisdom is seeing what's already present. This is the problem. We think there's something to figure out. We think there's a problem we can solve. We think there's some information out there that we're missing and we need to get it. We need to grasp it and bring it to us. It's not like that. The real wisdom is seeing that it's already present, and is sort of hard to put into words. And this is why, as a teacher, I just keep saying, just trust the process, just do the practice. All will come to you, all will be revealed. It's all good. There's no worry about you can't figure this out, or you can't see reality, or you can't have an authentic, deep experience. When the mind is clear and present, it sees what is clearly, how things are. It's not a strategized thing. It's not a philosophical thing. There's clues, and there's lots of philosophical books and intellectual discussions about, Buddhist philosophy and this stuff. That's not what I'm interested in. So you can get that on other channels. You can certainly get that from other books, other teachers and books. But I was trained in what's called the practice lineage. Practice lineage means that emphasis is on practice. And you supplement that, yes, with some study and understanding and all that stuff. But principally, we say the practice will show you everything you need to know. If you do it sincerely and, kind of straightforward, and, and get clarity. It's good to ask questions. This is very important because we are all confused and we're all new to this in a sense. We need to there's little fine points and hints and tidbits that will help us streamline our journey and to make it maybe more effective or more efficient. Because many people meditate and many people spin their wheels and many people burn out. Many people stop doing it. And some people do very well and continue and have a wonderful flourishing practice for decades. And I hope that's what the viewers of this channel will all fall in love with your practice. I always like to say, I hope my prayer for you is you fall in love with meditation. You fall in love with practice, that it should be enjoyable. It should be satisfying, in the sense that there's nothing more satisfying than finding true contentment, true peace of mind.
It is difficult. And I think that's where it becomes less attractive to some people because there is work to be done.
Well, sure, there's work to be done.
You get bored, right? As you always tell me, that's part of the training.
Yeah, well, again, that's why we say that's sort of the disease of our modern civilization. We're entitled, and it's this is about instant gratification, and we can just get anything with a touch of a dial or push a button or whatever, that everything is available to us. It's too easy, but that sort of in a sense may cheapen reality a little bit. You do have to work for things that are we have to work for things that are worthwhile. I mean, to be a great athlete, to be a great artist, great musician, a great anything, you usually have to train, you have to practice.
But it's a huge sacrifice.
Well,
in a lot of instances, I'm just thinking like a professional athlete going to the Olympics. That's a sacrifice in a lot of ways to do.
But why?
The amount of work that goes.
No, why? Why are they sacrificing? Why?
I guess you're right. What are they sacrificing?
No, I'm asking you a question. The answer is, I'll give you the answer, since they sacrifice because they have a goal.
Right.
The goal is to be the best athlete or to win, to get a gold medal at the Olympics or whatever, right? They have a goal.
Yeah.
A Buddhist meditator has a goal too. It's to free one's mind, is to become enlightened, to help the entire universe, you could say. That's the goal. The goal is to understand that we suffer and that we want to put an end to suffering. The goal is that we understand that we're confused and we're trying to put an end to our confusion. The goal is that we understand that we don't have deep, unlimited wisdom, and we want to develop deep, unlimited wisdom. So it's very important. Actually, I'm really glad you brought this up and asked this question. It's very important to have a clear sense of that there's a goal. And we could just say simply the goal is enlightenment. You could almost say that. But that's the point. The point is, the goal is not just to live a life and then have regrets when we die. That's the goal.
It seems
so
like
these are all
actually multiple goals, and they're like
Of course, but they're all the same goal. They're all the same.
Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just thinking what you're saying. There is multiple, and I guess ultimately.
Yes, but to have a clear sense of these multiple goals, and then a clear sense that these are all the same goal. They just mutually reinforce each other. They're all the same goal.
Right.
The goal is to free a free, clear, present mind and a heart that's open and loving, and a mind that's unstuck and unfettered and not caught in habitual patterns. That's all the same goal. It's the same thing.
A thought occurred to me when we were just talking about this. You're able to self-free yourself from the matrix, let's say, to call it that. Whereas in the movie The Matrix, you're not able to free yourself. Somebody else has to free you. But in this instance, in Buddhism, you can free your own mind.
Well, yes, and again, thank you, Bob Marley, as you bring up a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, free yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, okay. Well, thank you so much, Lama Dawa. Thank you for joining us. It's Tom, right?
Right.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Tom. Appreciate you joining us. Please like, subscribe, share, comment below. It gives us something to look forward to if we can answer some of your questions out there. Please comment below, and if you want to email us, thebuddhistmeditator@gmail.com.
Good night or goodbye, everyone. Thanks
Thank you.
for viewing.
Thank you, Lama Dawa. Thank you for your wisdom today. And I'll be back next time around.
All right.